Hola.
Konnichiwa, ¿cómo estás? Wie geht's Ihnen?
But all good, man.
A little bit of
Yeah, a
everything.
little German, a little, yeah, Japanese.
I mean, a little something. Some would call it from the Orient.
That was,
I don't know if I'm actually allowed to say that
I
anymore.
don't know. It's fine. You get canceled anyway. It's not a problem.
Okay. Um, so we actually had so many topics on the last episode that we had to cut it short, and we ended up not talking about everything. So today we go and talk about some of those other
Yeah,
things that we didn't get
yeah,
to.
part two kind of. Yep.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Now this is a little less medically, more
Oh, that's
jujitsu-y,
fine.
and a little topical even,
Well,
if you
Okay.
will. Yeah, because I know you're a big internet guy and you keep track of all.
Yeah,
the goings on.
yeah, I'm on social media 24/7.
Yeah. Well, first there is a popular. I wouldn't say he's popular yet, but he's like making his way to popularity in the jiu-jitsu content scene. He has his own podcast. He's a black belt, and he thought, or he brought up an interesting question that I kind of want to know your 2 cents on, because it typically is a word that's banned at Cascade Jiu-Jitsu in Everett, Washington,
Flow roll.
And
and
How did I
now,
know?
now
Yeah.
the term has started to rear its little head in our little Ginge's vernacular, and he is starting to use it more.
Yeah. He also did ecological training the other day.
Oh my gosh. You guys have been infested with AIDS. You know what's funny is I know how that AIDS gets spread, and I'm not
Yeah.
surprised.
Well, yeah, I'm gonna stop. I had a comment.
You got, yeah, you got nothing to say, do
No,
you?
I did have something to say. I'm gonna withhold it because we'll get shadow banned or something.
Yeah, that's true. So the podcast is called "I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu," or that's the guy's YouTube page. He's a black belt. Seemed like pretty chill dude. He was kind of like us, like not a ton of views or followers. Then he had however, he got Keenan Cornelius on, and that kind of blew up his page a little bit, like a little mini glow up. I don't know his name. I've actually not really watched his stuff yet. I plan on it. But the interesting question was, what is your flow roll etiquette? What is your flow roll etiquette?
Okay, can we
tell me.
well,
What,
we're gonna have to define flow roll first.
Yeah, who are you looking at? There's some naked dude off the camera.
huh?
No, my wife's home with me. She's on the other she's
Oh,
listening on headphones too, so
well,
you may get
a
something
naked
spicy.
lady, I should say.
No, you might get something spicy here. She's like
Make
a guest
sure her mic's on.
no, she's saying no, but I don't know. We'll see if it happens. But anyway,
No,
No,
I don't.
no
no
racist
racist
remarks.
remarks.
Oh yeah, that's right. Anyway, she just went to a really cool regenerative medicine conference, doing stuff on the down
Was it
under.
was it called the Bilderberg Group?
No, no,
That's not the name of the group. Okay.
yeah, it wasn't. But anyway, back. I'm not trying to tangentialize things. You like that?
Oh,
But
keep the fake
I want to know
words
your
out of here.
Oh,
definition of flow
keep the fake
roll.
words
Yeah,
out
what
of
that was
here.
completely fake. I want to know your definition of flow roll because before I talk about flow roll
Okay.
etiquette, what do you mean by flow roll? I think that's the crux of the
That's
problem right there. Don't you?
that can be because there's multiple
What do
styles
you
of flow rolling, right?
what do you think? Not you or most people.
That can
Yes.
Slow rolling,
Yeah.
right?
So let's talk about that first. So
Okay, I think
what comes to mind when someone says, "Hey, Bill, do you want a flow roll?" What do you think you're gonna do?
First knee-jerk reaction is very, I don't want to say very little strength, but gosh, it also depends on what level they are. If they're a blue belt and they try to tell me they want a flow roll, one, I think that you might hurt cats in your closet on your own time, and you're just going to try to hurt me like a cat in your closet. Um, you stuff guinea pigs up your butt. Like, what was that guy's name? Richard Gere,
That, oh
allegedly.
my God.
And
That, I think it was disproven actually. Now you're going to get a defamation lawsuit on you.
how do they disprove that?
I'm not even going to go there. All I can say is the only proof that would be there is if you were at an ER and you had to extract said mammal, right? Then you're like,
Is
yep, you.
Is a guinea pig a mammal?
Yes.
I thought it was a marsupial.
Okay, Carrie and I are looking at you like, dude. All
I
right.
don't even know what
I
that
don't even
means.
know
I
what
just
that
heard
means.
it
I
on
just
A
heard it on
marsupial's like a
YouTube one day.
a pouch. But anyway, so yeah, I hear what you're saying. So I like you, like
Okay.
there's a couple of people
Yeah.
like, hey, you want a flow roll? I'm like,
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
Right. So if okay, but if I were to say it, let's say, like I'm initiating flow roll, I'm thinking not a lot of strength. We're really working out positions. Typically not too fast, but not too slow. I want to get something out of the roll. I don't want it to be so slow paced that, for example, if I'm performing a maneuver, I don't want to have to hold back my body weight so much that I'm having to like post in a way that I wouldn't normally
Yeah,
post,
totally.
to like keep my weight off them or
You still
something.
have to have the
So-
So
mechanics.
I want there to, yes, and I want there to be enough tension and speed that it has a little bit of realism. And I kind of think of a good way to flow roll is almost like speed chess, where it's one move, one move, one move, one move. So if me and you are flow rolling, you're playing sit up guard. I'm going to start to get you to your back and then start a knee cut with my hand on your hip, and maybe I don't have the sleeve grip to like finish a knee cut. So as I'm doing that, you should be able to counter because I'm not going so fast that it's like a diving knee cut, but you're able to start to swim an underhook, or maybe you're going to just do kind of like a like knees behind my butt and like buck me forward, and you're going to do that not with a ton of ferocity, but you're going to do that in a technical way that I have to now react. So if you did the like I go to knee cut, your knees kind of bump me in the butt, so I have to kind of post forward and my weight goes, yeah, now I have to react to that. So what's my reaction? Well, if I got bumped pretty good, I might actually have to sit to my butt because now you just did a counter. You came on top. And now you're deep knee cutting. Well, now I got the underhook.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and it should have a smoothness to it. In the beginning, if you don't know your dance partner, it's going to be clunky. But that's why you should, like, if you find someone you can trust, you can have this kind of like sing-songy round that also never has a lull. There shouldn't be a lull. You should challenge you're stoking your mind to be kind of seamless and
So in other
thoughtful.
words, let's say that you or I, it doesn't matter who, got into mount. We're not going to just hold that position and, maybe we'll give a little avenue for some escapes, or you know what I mean? We're not going to
What
try to just sit there for a couple minutes.
you're allowing the initiation of the
Yeah.
move, right? So I might not be allowing you to let's say, okay, you're mounted on me and I start getting to my side, grabbing your instep to kind of put it in between my legs to capture like quarter guard.
Yep.
In this moment, you have a little bit of knee tension, you have dead toes, you're performing a mount in a very correct way. Now, as I start scooping that, instead of you just ripping my grip up or like really like crossing your ankles, you're allowing this entry. But as I'm going for it, now you get to start countering. You get to start doing your
Well,
counter.
or like
And then
Yeah. For instance, like in
Go
that
ahead.
go ahead.
example,
Go ahead.
I may, not super permissive, but I'm not going to fight for my life. I'll let you get that foot. As soon as you got quarter guard, maybe I do a ninja roll, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yeah.
a back take.
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? So I'll counter your
Yep.
position
Yep.
immediately.
Exactly. So a lot of the time you're not even getting into full positions. It's flow rolling. I find I get more out of it when I'm being very transitional and I go from like he to her or zer. That's when I really find my transitions
Well, see,
becoming
and that
Seamless.
little comment
fluid.
now,
Seamless.
this may have been a good podcast. It got a lot of views. Now we're going to get banned from that. So yeah,
Let's go.
but it was but I got to say it was a good analogy. I got it. And so it made sense to me. So here's the thing. Yes, that's exactly what I like to, because in my mind, the whole quote unquote flow rolling is working those transitions and being able to think
Mhm.
in that moment and put those things together. But like you said, the person you're having the role with it, that's crucial, because what I see often in the gym, and this is just hard, just anytime I've seen this, is there'll be a escalating intensity. You know what I mean?
And that's where I wanted to go with this. That's where I wanted to go is so when you've agreed, you have agreed, signed the contract, slap and bumped for a flow roll. And now you feel you guys are at 50% effort. Just I'm experimenting, I'm having a good time. You got into mount, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or no, excuse me, I mounted you and I start putting you into a head and arm choke. You start to feel a little squeeze. That doesn't feel like 50%. What do you do?
Well, it's
What do you do, you
it,
big egomaniac?
it's another thing now, isn't it? It's not a flow roll anymore. Is
What
it?
has been done has changed.
Right. And so then the rest of the round will be that. And that's my point with this. If you go in, it's the intention. If you both understand, I think people need to understand what that means when they say flow roll. It's not just a light roll. You have the intention of going in there, working with your partner on transitions and doing just that. It's not to see who's going to beat who in that round, right? That's the whole point. But oftentimes, whether it's, that little ego creeps in, or just you're not even thinking about it,
Okay.
and all of a
But who
sudden
has the
guys
ego
are
in this scenario?
well, I don't know. But my point is, when the things start escalating, it's like, why did they escalate?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. So let's say you feel me start to go for it because you really should be catch and releasing for the most part in a flow roll. But sometimes Gordon Ryan just posted a video of him and Patrick Gaudio, a Nogi world champ, essentially flow rolling. And Gordon taps him at one point with a Kimura.
Mm-hmm.
But it was as slow an application as you can imagine. And Gaudio tried two different escapes. And every time he kind of got put deeper in the submission to the point where he was just dead to rights. He didn't have any more chess pieces. He didn't have any more options. So then it's just a tap and they reset. And they reset with Patrick Gaudio mounted on Gordon. So
Like almost positional. Then they had like a whole idea of positional flow rolling, where hey, let's start in a bad position, or
Yes.
whatever,
yes.
right? Yeah.
Right. And so what happens? So whose fault is it? Let's say I start applying a submission with a little bit more intensity, not crazy, but obviously more than what we've been doing, or I'm holding a position and then you ramp it up because you're like, oh hell no, you ain't gonna do that to me, son.
If it's just a catch and
And then
release,
I feel that and I ramp it up.
That's how it happens. It's all perception, isn't it? And that's why knowing your training partner
Yeah.
well is super helpful. Because if you don't know of the person and like you want to flow roll, I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be that,
So I start to,
you know.
you're right. I start to lean towards it's the second person's, I don't want to say fault, but that's the main escalation, is the first response to escalation. Because let's say I start escalating, you could be like, whoa, easy. Like, especially if it's a training partner that you're like chill with, you can be like, whoa, we're just flowing,
Yep.
right? Or you just don't ramp up with them and continue to go at this easy pace. They catch you. Okay, now we reset.
That's where the
I
relation,
almost feel the second, yeah, is the one that causes the issue.
because if I know, and I roll with you all the time, and I know that, hey, if he did this, he's not trying to put some heat on this for, just that's my perception. It's not real, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, then we can, well, I
Right.
might even say anything, right? Unless it, there's consistently a
Mhm.
more aggro vibe to it. And then I'm like,
Yeah.
hey,
Yeah.
what's up, dude? Or something like that.
I used to blame the first guy, the guy initially, which he has some blame.
Yeah.
But for a flow roll to get out of control, I think it's actually more on the second guy, and I've changed my tune.
Yeah. Well, you can choose how you're going to react to it. I think
Yeah.
you're right. That I will say here's what I'll say. When you're talking about blame, I'll say the second guy now has perpetuated the dominoes falling, instead of he could have been.
Did you read a book before this episode?
You're using big
You're
words.
Using big words.
No, dude. It's called
Okay.
vocabulary. I don't know.
Oh.
I mean,
Isn't that
if you
cute?
it depends on, if you read Mad Libs all the time, you'll probably, I don't know.
I read comics.
But there's nothing wrong with comics, dude. They use big words.
I don't read.
I don't read
That's
comics.
all it is, dude.
Nerd alert.
Nerd
Anyway,
alert.
yeah, perpetuate. Okay. But anyway,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I'm saying. I think you're right
Yeah.
in that way, because that person then has the responsibility in the role not to, like, it's like mutually assured destruction. It's like an arms race, right? When you have two countries,
Yeah.
right? So what are we doing? Okay. Are we trying to
Right.
get something out of it? Because, and the good thing also about this whole way of training, especially if you have a good partner to work with, is you can open up stuff that you normally don't try on that level of, training partner. So, typically if I'm working brand new stuff, I'll work it on, the white belts or the, early purple, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But
Totally.
it's also a cool chance to get some feedback from like a fellow black belt if we're doing it that way, and like, hey, what do you think? They can be like, oh yeah, hey, that was a cool transition, but hey, try that. You know what I mean? We can give each other feedback too, and I think that's super valuable as long as we can keep all that stuff in check. So that's what I think. Your description is what I think flow rolling is. But so if you came up to me, or we have some black belts and brown belts at our gym, even some purple belts that understand that, and like, hey, yeah, this is what we're gonna do. And I'm cool with that. But if someone that is kind of a little more aggro, or you don't know them well, I just say, well, I'll match your intensity. That's I always just tell them. I'm like, look, we can, sure, but, and then maybe, and I don't like to, I like, talking smack during the roll is kind of fun, with your friends, but I don't, unless I'm really trying to do an instructional role with a white belt, and like we know we're going into it to do that, and like, hey, let's pause here. Not like a real, but I don't like let's not instruct during the roll type of thing.
Right.
Yeah, that's a pet peeve of mine for sure.
Unless you go to like someone you're brand new and they don't even know how to roll yet, and then we're like pausing like an instructional thing, like, hey, let's stop right here. You see what's going? Do you know what I mean?
Dude, I caught myself doing this when I first got down here. It's a pet peeve of mine, and I did it. I think I said this on the podcast. I did it like twice to a purple belt competitor that she's like super good.
Oh yeah, you showed me footage. Yeah.
I did it with her, and I didn't even know her. And after I did it, I felt so icky. I was like, what am I doing? ugh, it
That
was,
guy, you're gross. Ugh.
yeah, yeah. Um, so I think that all makes a lot of sense. That it kind of goes in what you were saying kind of goes into another question I had, which was dealing with someone you don't want to roll with. How do you do that? How when there's someone, let's say not a new person that is like, I'm not going to roll with the 270-pound white belt that's new or a blue belt or something that I don't know, but it's someone that you just haven't had good experiences with. They're a part of your gym. You see them once a week, twice a week, who know, whatever. How do you how
That
do you
All
deal
right.
with
dealing
that?
with someone you don't
Dealing
want to
with
roll
someone
with.
you don't want to roll with. That's a regular
That's okay.
gym
This is
mate.
this is tricky, and I always go with honesty is the best policy. In other words, um, I would say something like, "Hey, I appreciate you asking, but I have some, you know, I haven't had great experiences in our previous roles, and this is what my
Mm,
perception is." Because I don't want. There's nothing worse, especially if it's like a purple belt. If someone's been there a long time, then they're like, dude, that guy just doesn't like me. And that may not be it at all. Maybe just a really cool person, but for whatever reason, things happen, man. They're
yeah.
not thinking about what they're doing. Who knows? But I'll address it
Hmm.
directly, and because I think it's the best policy. And like, hey, this has been my experience so far. I'm reluctant to roll with you because of this, and I'm wondering,
Mm,
then we can talk about it, and maybe you'll like, oh, I didn't realize I was doing that, or
yeah.
whatever the reason is, right? And everyone has their own, for me, it's just safety. I just don't want to be injured, man. If I see people
Hmm.
doing a lot of uncontrolled body weight, someone super strong that doesn't know how to use their strength right, and then will just,
Sure.
y- you know, um, not that there's anything, if you're strong, great, but
Right.
understand it should, reinforce technique.
Throttle
Yeah, all that stuff,
control.
and that's stuff that needs to be developed. And I think as a black belt, if you're asking what I would do, that
Hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
owe it to that person as part of their development to say, hey, man, this isn't a personal thing. I like you as a person. But if they're a creepy person, that's a whole nother issue that probably other people have with them too. You know what I mean?
That's why you get
Yeah,
rejected.
but I think having a conversation is important, don't you? Yeah, I know. I heard. I know.
Yeah.
I just ignored your stupid comment.
There's a reason you're not allowed 1,000 feet in elementary school. Look at that face, people. Um,
Of all
yeah,
people to say that,
I've,
dude.
I'm freshly shaven, bro. I'm good.
Mm,
Um, I've had that, and it's very public at Cascade that I've just been honest with a couple people and like, bro, you get one roll a month, and that's it. Because literally, it doesn't have to do with them actually winning the round. I'm fine with losing rounds. It's an injury thing. Is I just have not had I've either gotten hurt or I've felt close to getting hurt multiple
yep.
times. And I've noticed this after being a coach for a few years is because what can happen is a student can go to a coach and say something to him and say, "Man, I don't feel comfortable roll with them." And it's almost confusing to the coach where they're like, "What do you mean? They roll fine with me. I've seen that up there. I've seen that down here. I've seen it with myself
Hmm.
on both ends, the coach side and the someone complaining to me and being the complainer. And from a coach's perspective, it can be hard because people roll with you differently as the coach. So they might seem more controlled. They might seem safer, but when there's multiple people that come out and say like, I just avoid them because I'm just a little wary of this. It just doesn't feel safe. That's when it's like, okay, I might have to actually check my experience, my truth, okay?
Should also, as a coach, you should be then start to be observant and start actually actively watching.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great point.
That's your responsibility, actually. So if you're running
It's
class,
easy to not do that
of
because
course,
you're rolling.
of course.
Yeah.
But that's juggling. That's why what I think Andrew does so well. He rolls, but he's also keeping an eye on stuff, and he knows he's developed a cadre of upper belts that will come to him and like, hey man, can you watch this person? You know what I mean?
Right.
Right.
And so that's important. Hey, I know this is kind of like a party crashing thing, but I think this is actually a valuable, especially for a 58-year-old female black belt. Do you mind giving your 2 cents on what Carrie?
Make sure her mic
is on. We're not going to put you on camera, but just if you can tell us when you have that situation, because I think this is very valuable, because you may have the situation where you don't feel like comfortable rolling with someone.
There's very few that I don't feel comfortable with. I'll at least go try them out. And so I'm thinking more of some of our newer white belts that have joined like over the last 6 months. And I try to provide some instructive feedback instead of saying, hey, I don't think this feels safe. I'm like, oh, maybe we want to refine your technique this way. But in general, I think I only felt unsafe a few times when I was a lower belt, like white or early purple. But since then, it's about, I take more care to protect myself.
Yeah, but do you, I hear, and I like that. That's a diplomatic way of doing things. But do you feel like as a black belt, though, it may be like, hey, I've watched this, and some of the, I know you're new, but some of the way you're rolling right now is making some people maybe feel unsafe and not want to roll with you. And this is what I'm seeing, and giving them actually some feedback.
I don't think I've ever told anybody that they've seemed unsafe. The kitties are trying to knock down the shoji screen behind us.
Yeah.
But so I've not come across that.
Okay.
But
if you were in that situation, I mean,
I would certainly pull them aside.
Yeah. Okay.
And have a conversation with them.
Okay. All right. Well, I just wanted to get Carrie's input, because I think, and Olivia would have also a very good, if she was here today, she would probably have a good, because women do, I think, will encounter that even more, right?
Yeah.
To an extent.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to get her in.
Yeah, for sure. And I do like how she goes about it. And I think that's probably, when I think back, that's how I've addressed it, especially with the lower belts. Actually, I would say only with the lower belts. Maybe not with like a brown or purple, but maybe a purple belt. But where I've said, like almost like a correction to the technique, and said, and the reason is because if you're a big guy or something like that, if you just start ripping on this, injury can happen, and then you lose a training partner. And that's not the goal. The goal is to keep our training partners, but apply good technique, and know that like maybe it's a tournament and you want to rip on that a little bit more, that's the time to rip on that and really put some steam into it. But in here, just focus on having good, sharp technique, because if you got sharp technique, someone your size or your strength, you're only going to need 50%, if they have good technique. So I think that's a good way to say it.
Yeah, not only will they lose that training partner, but potentially a lot of others that are like,
Yeah, because word's going to get out. And
so, yeah, it's a fine
stuff.
line, because we want to train hard too. Okay. And that doesn't, but we also, and there's a way to do that safely. And that's really, I mean, we always see this all the time. The biggest source of injury is uncontrolled body weight. I mean, it just is. It's uncontrolled body weight is what happens. And these were usually an awkward position. Anyway, yeah, that's a really good topic, and it's sometimes hard to address and to know what we really mean.
Yeah.
But I think the vocabulary is really important, because flow roll means a lot of different things to a lot of different people, especially people just coming up in this. And I think let's make a definition. You know,
Right.
and what does it mean? It may be
It-
different to academy, but at least we should all be able to say, hey, here we're going to do Suma Gaeshi. Okay, we know we have those Japanese words that may sound pretentious, but we know that that's a hook sweep. You know what I mean? We understand we need some kind of common language that we all understand. And so I think that's important. Anyway.
Yeah, I agree. And last topic here is there's a viral video that's gone around. I assume you haven't seen it because it's pretty much just been on Instagram, but there's a content creator. He's a brown belt, and he's not like a super competitor. He competes, but he's not. He didn't win brown belt worlds or something like that. But he puts out a lot of content, and I would say he historically has kind of gone more down the kind of comedy kind of route, like a lot of funny stuff, and then some useful techniques and all that kind of stuff. And he has some popularity. His name,
I was going to say, you're a black belt.
No, it's not myself, you butt. His name, his name is Wong Jiu-Jitsu, so it could be me, I guess. But that's his Instagram name is Wong Jiu-Jitsu, and he came under fire recently because he posted a reel, like a little video clip of there was a wrestler visitor, and so he's an adult competitor. I think he's probably like 25. He's kind of at the peak of his athletic ability. He's really good shape. And this wrestler comes in, and in the context, he puts out he says this wrestler came in and tried doing normal wrestler bullshit, where it's like kind of cagey. And just honestly, it's just rolling with a wrestler. And unfortunately, this guy's kind of given us Jiu-Jitsu already has this stigma of us being soft, which we know is BS, but I get it because stereotypes come from somewhere. And the wrestler, he's doing well with the guy standing, to the point where like Wong Jiu-Jitsu comes around to his hips and like drives him off the mat like with a double, and it's like he runs into the wall. And it's like, okay, now things are getting a little spicy, and then it flashes to Wong Jiu-Jitsu pulls guard, and the wrestler's like, come on, like he doesn't like that he pulled guard because he wants to probably continue throwing him.
Yes, Jiu-Jitsu. Hello.
Well, exactly. It's like, no, you come here, learn how to pass the guard. That's my funny thing with wrestlers is like they think a match ends when a butt hits the ground. Like that's so arbitrary and like ridiculous. But anyways, the video ends with Wong Jiu-Jitsu puts him in an inside heel hook and is putting a lot of effort into finishing this thing. Essentially, like they were in like 50-50, and he just grabs that inside and he's ripping, and the thing pops a few times. So the community in buying. Okay, actually, yeah. Before I go out in the community, what's your initial reaction? Imagine you just saw that. This guy put this video out like I just effed up this wrestler.
I got you. Well, let me just talk. I haven't seen the video, but I'm going off your description of what happened, which I'm sure is correct. But no, that's
ever.
No, that's vindictive, man. That's not what you do. I'm assuming this wrestler is new to jiu-jitsu, right?
He is.
Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay, yeah.
Oh yeah.
So he doesn't know.
Yep.
So he's gonna do what he does. He's a wrestler.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And you don't you don't put someone in an inside heel hook that's brand. And do you think the wrestler knows how to defend an inside heel hook, or even what direction to roll? If he could, anyway, it depends on where the knee line was. You know what I mean? I think he's. Yeah, that's my point. And so I think he put that guy in a dangerous situation, and then tried to, what you're telling me, kind of crank on an inside heel hook and maybe destroy the dude's knee. And now, not only do you have, those wrestlers are still grapplers, man, and they're experienced grapplers, whether one jiu-jitsu, judo, whatever you want to call it. And if you can get a wrestler and like, hey man, you're, obviously very talented grappler. If you want to come in here and learn this extra piece, you're going to even be better. So instead of bringing him in, now we've probably created an enemy, right?
And if this guy is still actively competing as a wrestler,
Yeah.
now you've fucked up his art.
Yeah. So yeah, I would. That's
Yeah.
BS, man. I mean, of course, the guy
Yeah,
comes in
and the
aggro.
Wong
Yeah, that's
Jiu-Jitsu.
fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. But that, what that quantity is, man. That is the wrestling ethos. They hit it hard, man, and they have that mental toughness and that drive, and that's what they do. But if, like I said, we have several wrestlers, and now they have their jujitsu, and now they're just absolute animals. And I just think it's a missed opportunity and really unfortunate. Anyway, that's my 2 cents. What was what was the outrage?
Well, yeah, the outrage is that he did that. And a lot of people are like, dude, you literally, you could have had a guy that would make you better because he's obviously better than you at stand-up. That's fine. That's expected. So you actually, being a competitor, could have had a good competitor in your room that makes your stand-up better. And then, like you said, you can then show him the leg game and kind of make this another monster in your room and elevate the whole room. Now the community has set this dude on fire, the Wong Jiu-Jitsu. The community is setting Wong Jiu-Jitsu on fire because they're like, dude, he's still a white belt. You like, I've had this myself, this exact scenario. And what I've done is I will put them in a sub. I wouldn't steer away from putting them in a heel hook even, but I'm not going to put finishing pressure. I'm going to put him in, let's say, inside Senkaku or honey hole or something like that, and I am just going to hold his hips. I'm not even going to put tension on the heel, but just lock his hips down, similar to, let's say, an arm bar. I'm not necessarily going to fall back on the arm, but I'm going to put him in like spider web, let's say. He's going to do the wrestler thing and be very athletic. And you just let them know that, like, you got him. Because athleticism doesn't work at this point, at this deep stage submission position. Athleticism isn't going to be what get you. You're going to have some technique and athleticism. And you don't got technique, you just got athleticism. So it's almost like you're showing how
I got it.
Their depth of knowledge to them.
I get that, but I would also push back just a hair on what you said. I would be very careful about get them I know locking their hips down, maybe something like saddle position, or you got them in a position where they're really not going anywhere, and that's fine. But I would be worried about putting in, even if I'm just holding it, I'm worried about their reaction more than anything. And they may not know that you got them. That's the point, right? They
most likely don't
know that they're dead to rights here, and you're just like catch and release. That's where the education would be. I'm like, hey man, afterwards, it's not during the roll. Like, look, here's the thing. Let's get back in this position. I want to show you something real quick. So, right? And just have a little educational piece, man. And I'd be really careful about getting, even because they'll use their athleticism and may hurt themselves trying to get out of submission. So you got to be really get ready just to let go, and say, look, dude, you didn't escape. This is the thing, man.
Right. And that's one of those things where we run into, like, and that's all dependent on the person, right? Like, they're going to have their ego where it's like, oh, you just let me escape, and then we have to check our ego and be like, yeah. And not get all hot and bothered.
And just say, hey man, do you mind if I show you real quick? I'll show you what I mean. And then we can do it in do it in a controlled environment. But having those folks in there, like you said, I mean, I've had our lower belt wrestlers, man. I mean, I had zero wrestling, and now I actually have some decent little, instincts with it, especially during scrambles, just because of rolling with the wrestlers and trying to figure and having them show me stuff. It's awesome. So anyway,
Sure.
yeah, they should have,
Absolutely.
they should have, strung him up on the, raised his flag up on the flagpole for everyone to look at and say, look, dude, this is not how you do things. Yep.
Yeah. He's definitely getting torched by the community. So
he should. We that's not acceptable.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I agree.
I think matching a wrestler is okay when it comes to intensity, but putting finishing pressure on, especially a submission, we all know that legs are unique in the fact that there is tightness when you're having it applied to you. There's tightness, and then pop, catastrophic injury compared to a Kimura, an arm bar, something of this sort, or an ankle lock, where it's typically really painful and not even always catastrophic injury first. Like you might have a dislocation or something like that, and then an actual catastrophic break. But there's a lot of pain first compared to the legs. There's not much pain. It's just tight.
Especially with heel hooks, man. And inside heel hook,
Yeah.
You may have it just kind of locked down and they make some kind of crazy athletic move the wrong way. And they've just ripped their own knee apart. Right. So I'm not a fan.
Yeah. I hope to heel hook you soon. But with that, a little bit shorter episode. What'd you say?
I was going to say, we're not going to flow roll then.
No, that's how I'm going to start it too. I'm just going to dive on your leg. Little bit shorter episode today, but some funny kind of topics that I think were kind of cool. We got another set of topics already got waiting for the next episode. So go ahead and hit that music.
I already did, dude. Looks like I'm reading your line.
You're a killer.
Your line. Your
Grappling with podcasts. Grappling with podcasts at gmail.com. Check us out on Instagram. We don't post a lot, but I see all questions that come in and people DM us questions. I see all that. And then look out for maybe a little hint of another podcast that might be starting. That's all I'm saying. Just a little hint. So with that, we'll see you on the next one, guys.
Later. Peace.